Okay, so have you ever, like, sat down for a meal and, just kind of taken for granted that the food is there?
Yeah, I mean, most of us do, right?
But could you imagine a world where, like, that food just wasn't?
It's hard to fathom, but that wasn't actually that long ago. Like just 70 years ago, that was the reality for a huge chunk of the world.
It's crazy, right? Billions of people on the brink of starvation.
Yeah, the world was still recovering from a world war, populations were booming, and the way we were farming just couldn't keep up.
And that's where Norman Borlaug comes in. This guy, he's like the unsung hero of the 20th century.
I'd agree with that. Not many people know his name, but he quite literally saved over 1 billion lives.
Over 1 billion. It's mind-boggling. So how did he do it? That's what we're going to deep dive into today.
Well, the thing is, Borlaug wasn't some, genius scientist with a fancy lab.
Right, he was a farmer. Right, from Iowa.
Exactly. Just a farm boy who truly understood, the profound importance of plants.
And he lived through the Great Depression, so he saw firsthand how devastating hunger can be.
Oh, absolutely. That experience, I think, really fueled his drive to make sure no one else would ever have to face that kind of desperation.
And so that drive led him to Mexico in the 1940s.
Right. Mexico was in a really tough spot at the time. Their wheat crops were failing. People were going hungry. It was a full-blown crisis.
It sounds dire, but Borlaug, he wasn't the type to just give up, was he?
Not at all. He dove right in, got his hands dirty, started experimenting in the fields.
So what was his plan? I mean, how do you fix a failing wheat crop?
He was convinced that wheat had the potential to be way more productive, but it needed some, serious help.
Yeah.
So he began crossbreeding different varieties, trying to find, the perfect combination of traits. He wanted wheat that was disease-resistant, high yield, and could thrive in all sorts of tough conditions.
Super wheat. But I'm guessing this wasn't a quick process.
Definitely not. It took years of intense, meticulous work. He pioneered this technique called shuttle breeding. Basically, he would plant wheat in one location, then move it to a completely different climate.
Wait, physically move the plants?
Yeah. He'd move them to speed up the growth and breeding process. It was brilliant, really.
Talk about dedication.
Yeah.
So did his super wheat actually work?
It did. It's actually pretty incredible. Within a few decades, Mexico went from facing starvation to becoming a major wheat exporter.
Wow. Talk about a turnaround. They called it the Mexican miracle, right?
Yep. And Borlaug was right at the heart of it, but Mexico was just the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mexico was just the start. Because the thing is, the challenges that Borlaug tackled, they haven't gone away.
Right. If anything, things are even more complicated now.
Exactly. We can't just keep relying on these, old solutions,
Yeah, the world's a totally different place now. What are some of the big things that have changed?
Well, I mean, climate change is a huge E1. We're seeing all these extreme weather events, droughts, floods. It's messing up growing seasons. It's causing chaos for farmers all over the world.
Yeah, it's like we're playing this high-stakes game with a whole new set of rules.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of water. I mean, obviously it's essential for life and for farming, but in so many parts of the world, it's becoming increasingly scarce.
So how do we grow enough food for everyone while also making sure we don't, drain the planet dry?
Right. It's a tough problem to solve. And then you've got the issue of the soil itself. Intensive farming can be really productive, but it can also really deplete the soil.
Oh, so it's like taking too much out of your bank account without putting anything back in.
Yeah, exactly. You're taking out all the nutrients that plants need to grow. And Borlaug, he actually understood this. He was actually pretty critical of some of the negative side effects of the Green Revolution.
Oh, really? That's interesting. What sorts of things?
Well, he saw how, relying on chemical fertilizers and pesticides, that could pollute the water, harm biodiversity.
Yeah.
It could create these dangerous dependencies.
So even Borlaug, the guy who basically started the Green Revolution, he was aware that there were some downsides.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He knew that progress always comes with a responsibility to think about the long-term consequences.
Which makes his story even more relevant today, right?
Yeah.
Because we're dealing with those consequences now.
Exactly. And it means we need to come up with some new solutions.
So it's not just about, solving one problem and then we're done. It's about constantly adapting and innovating.
Right. And Borlaug really understood that. His work wasn't just about, putting food on tables. It was about starting a movement of innovation, of adapting to new challenges, and of finding solutions that actually work with the planet instead of against it.
Didn't he say you can't build peace on empty stomachs?
He did. And I think it's such a powerful statement because it really highlights that fundamental connection between, having enough to eat and creating a stable and peaceful world.
Because if people are hungry, they get desperate, and that leads to conflict.
Exactly. Food isn't just about survival. It's really the foundation for a just and prosperous society.
So where do we go from here? What can we actually learn from Borlaug, especially now, with all these complex challenges facing us?
Well, I think his story offers some really important lessons. I mean, first of all, it's clear that science and innovation are absolutely key in the fight against hunger.
Right. We can't just, keep doing things the same way.
Exactly. We need to keep pushing the boundaries of agricultural research, explore new techniques, develop new types of crops that can handle, the stresses of a changing world.
So, give the plants some armor so they can face the heat, the drought, the diseases, all that stuff.
Exactly. But it's not just about the science itself, it's also about collaboration. Borlaug was really good at bringing people together, like scientists, farmers, policymakers. He knew that to solve these big, complex problems, everyone needed to be working together.
So no working in silos. Everyone's got to be on the same page.
Right. And lastly, I think Borlaug's story is really a call to action. He believed that everyone, every single person has a role to play in addressing this issue of global hunger.
It's not just on scientists, then.
Right. It's about all of us, making smart choices about what we buy and eat, supporting sustainable farming practices, trying to reduce our food waste, advocating for policies that support food security, all of it.
So we can all make a difference, even in small ways.
Absolutely. I think Borlaug's legacy is a powerful reminder that one person can make a huge difference, but a collective effort can truly change the world. His story is all about human ingenuity and dedication. It shows that even when things seem impossible, we can solve these big challenges if we work together.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the life and work of Norman Borlaug, what's the one thing that stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
I think for me, it's really realizing that feeding the world, it's not just about, making sure everyone has food in their stomachs.
Right. It's got to be more than that.
Yeah, it's about creating a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Everyone has a chance to live a good life.
Exactly. A world where, nutritious food is a basic human right, not just a privilege for some.
That's powerful stuff. And that was Borlaug's vision, right?
Yeah. And it feels, I don't know, it feels even more important now than ever.
It's like we're at this crossroads. We've got these huge challenges, but there's also, so much potential.
Oh, absolutely. There's some seriously amazing stuff happening in agriculture right now. It's like we're upgrading the entire system.
Ooh, I like that. Upgrading the system. What kind of upgrades are we talking about?
Well, for one, scientists are developing these new crop varieties that can, handle extreme heat.
Oh, wow. So they can deal with climate change.
Exactly. These plants are bred to withstand crazy temperatures, drought, even these new diseases that are popping up because of climate change.
It's like we're giving them superpowers.
Yeah, we're giving them the tools they need to survive and thrive no matter what the world throws at them.
That's so cool. What else? What other upgrades are there?
Okay, so there's this whole movement called regenerative agriculture.
Regenerative agriculture. What's that?
So it's basically a way of farming that focuses on, healing the soil.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about taking stuff OUT of the soil. It's about putting stuff back in.
Exactly. It's about boosting biodiversity, reducing our reliance on chemical fertilizers and all that.
So it's like hitting the reset button on the land, making it healthy again.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's this other thing called vertical farming.
Vertical farming. What is that?
So imagine, skyscrapers filled with crops, growing food right in the middle of cities.
Hold on, buildings that are just farms.
Yep. They use these stacked layers of plants, and they're all grown indoors under these special LED lights. They control everything, the temperature, the water. It's super efficient.
Wow, it's like bringing the farm to the city.
Right. It means we can grow food closer to where people live all year round, and we don't need as much land or water.
That's incredible. So there's all this amazing innovation happening.
Yeah, and it's all driven by this same spirit of ingenuity and problem solving that Borlaug had. I think you would have been so excited to see all this.
It gives me hope, There are so many people out there working to find solutions.
And that's the thing, right? Borlaug showed us that progress is possible, even when the problems seem impossible to solve.
So it's on all of us to keep pushing forward, keep innovating, and work together.
Exactly. His legacy is a reminder that we can change the world if we put our minds to it.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dives into the life and work of Norman Borlaug.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. So, to everyone listening, let's take a moment to appreciate the food we have and the people who work so hard to grow it.
And let's remember everything we've learned today. The power of science, the importance of working together, and the incredible legacy of this one man who dedicated his life to making sure everyone has enough to eat.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. And until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and never underestimate the power of humans to change the world.